Hey, what's up YouTube? It is Blacktop here. Today I'm bringing you a deck profile of Cyber Dragons. I went to a regional on Saturday this weekend with my friends. It was or not a regional, a local, sorry. I went to a local tournament in Springfield, Illinois. It was about an hour and a half, hour 45 from where I live. And I brought Cyber Dragons hoping I would do well, and I did do pretty well. I went 4-1. That's I think about third place, somewhere around there. My friends did pretty well too, even though it was their first local event, but it wasn't too competitive of a locals, so take this deck profile at your own risk. The only loss I had was against an Altergeist player, and apparently this Altergeist player basically almost topped at the 200th YCS, so I didn't feel too bad about that. Everybody else I beat fairly easily. So let's get into the profile here. So, of course, you want to have 3 Cyber Dragons, of course. If you're playing Cyber Dragons, you obviously want to have the namesake of the deck right there. It's a free normal summon. If you go second and your opponent controls a monster, I don't know what else to say there. So 3 Cyber Dragons. Okay. The next Cyber Dragon monster is 3 Cyber Dragon Core. This is your searcher for your cyber spells and traps, and in a pinch, if your opponent controls a monster, you can banish it from your graveyard and special summon a Cyber Dragon monster from your deck. So it's really good in that regard. Of course, the 3 of... pretty obvious. If you know anything about this deck, you'll know that the 3 ofs are very necessary. So hers is necessary. It's a searcher when it goes to the graveyard, and it can also act as level 5. A fairly good card. Definitely run it at 3. No more, no less. Now these are just extenders. 2 Cyber Dragon Veer. This deck I found needs a lot of extenders in order to do well. And that's kind of sad, but if this deck gets hand trapped, or it doesn't open well, you're not gonna win. And maybe that's just my build, maybe that's because I'm not a good enough player, but I just found that out playing this deck. So 2 Cyber Dragon Veer for extenders. Next should be an honorary Cyber Dragon monster, 3 Galaxy Soldier, basically a level 5 light machine monster, good for all your rank 5 Xyz plays. 3 of that, of course. For hand traps, I run 3 Ghost Ogre and 2 Ash Blossom. I originally had this at 3 Ash Blossom and 2 Ghost Ogre, but I found that the deck likes to have more light monsters in it for the effect of Galaxy Soldier, so that's why I chose to run 3 Ghost Ogre instead of 2, and that's the ratios for the hand traps. And the last main deck monster was Jizikuru, the Star Destroying Kaiju. I like to main deck the Kaiju because if you give it to your opponent and they only controlled 1 monster, something like that, you could go into Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon with it. It's fairly good. It also stopped Sky Striker, but I didn't play any Sky Striker today, so didn't really help me out in that regard. For the spells, the Cyber Spell cards, one of the best search cards in the game, I think, outside of Engage, is Cyber Emergency. Basically, if its activation gets negated, you can discard a card and add it back to your hand. So it's really good in that regard. It searches a Cyber Dragon monster or 1 Light Machine monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, so 3 of those. Next is 2 Cyber Repair Plant. It's like the OG search card for Cyber Dragons. The only drawback is that you have to have a Cyber Dragon in the graveyard in order to use it. So 2 of those. Finally, 2 Cyber Rev System. Again, this is another extender. I mean, you kind of have to have a lot of extenders in this deck. It's unfortunate, but it's a really good card. It doesn't target. You don't have to target for cost or anything like that, and it's not a hard once per turn or anything like that. So it's a really good card. Next, the best card if you open Core is Machine Duplication. I run 3 of them. This card's broken in Cyber Dragons. If you open this in hers or Core, you've got it. You basically got game right there. Next, as another extender, Instant Fusion. This will bring out, you'll see when I go into the extra deck what it will bring out, but this is just another extender you have to have. Some people don't play this. I like it because it's just there if you need it. Sometimes you have to get that body on board to protect yourself anyway, so 2 of those. 1 Overload Fusion, just in case I see it, I'm going to consider switching this out for that Cyberload Fusion or whatever that one's called. But I just haven't tested it enough yet. So I played 1 Overload Fusion, 1 Super Poly. In future duels with this deck, I might actually put this in the side and not the main, and probably maybe put a Cybernetic Overflow in the main. But it was decent whenever I saw it. One time I had a grind game with a guy. I had to give my opponent a Kaiju, and then I had to Super Poly into Mud Dragon. I just had to do it because I didn't have anything else to do. So that was 1 Super Poly right there. 2 Called by the Grave. Like I said, this deck gets stopped by hand traps, so you want to have Called by the Grave. It's a really good card. Not sure why it's a 2 though, but anyways, play 2 of it. Foolish Burial. Just if you can't get anything started, you can send your Hers or Core to the grave. Hers will net you a search, and Core, if your opponent controls a monster, you'll get that free special summon. So Foolish Burial's good. Cyber Dragons like to be in the graveyard. And finally, 3 Twin Twister for back row decks. That's all for the main deck right there. For the side deck, or not side deck, for the extra deck, sorry. I play 1 Cyber Dragon Seeger, 2 Nova, 2 Infinity. Of course, these are like some of the best Cyber Dragon cards. Basically, what you're trying to do turn 1, at least what I found in this deck, is to get a Seeger and an Infinity on board. That is if you go first or second, really. You use that's what you want to do. Now, if you have the Overload Fusion and you can, I would go into what's it called? I would go into Clipboard Genius, Infinity, and your Chimera Tech Rampage. Speaking of which, we got 2 Mega Fleets. Great card for extra deck monsters to get rid of them. Stuff like that. They didn't really come up too much because nobody there was playing anything that had like a heavy extra deck. The only thing I like really played against that was like relatively extra deck heavy was, what was it? I was like Blue Eyes and didn't really do much there. So yeah, 2 Mega Fleet, 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon if you give your opponent the Kaiju, or if they're just playing machines or something like that. Really good card. And 1 Rampage Dragon. This is for the Overload Fusion. It's a really good card. And I guess as an honorary Cyber Dragon card, put Panzer Dragon in here. This is the instant fusion target. I guess you could make Rampage an instant fusion target as well, but it's the main instant fusion target to go into Nova and then into Infinity. So that's the Cyber Dragon part of the extra deck. Other than that, we got a Mud Dragon of the Swamp, good for your Super Poly, Constellar Pleiades, Volcasaurus. This thing's good if you're going into time, I suppose. And then finally, Clipboard Genius for the 2, if you have 2 machine monsters and you can get 2 extra deck monsters on the field, good. And Link Rebo, if you brick and you just open your Hers or whatever, you can summon it, Link Rebo, and get the searches off of that and get things going. So that is the extra deck there. For the side deck, I run 3 Inspector Border. This never really came up. Nobody ever made me go first, I don't think. Maybe once, but I knew I had the game in the bag because he didn't have a very good deck or whatever. That's a terrible excuse, but there are definitely several situations where this would come up. If your opponent makes you go first, you probably want to put this in, sided in as such. So 3 Inspector Border there. The other Ash Blossom right there, just in case. 2 Cybernetic Overflow. Like I said, I'd probably take out a Super Poly from the main and put in a Cybernetic Overflow. It's a really good card, non-targeting destruction. It's a really good card. 3 Rivalry of Warlords. I didn't really put this in. Basically, everybody I played had mono-type decks. The only thing I would ever really want to put it in against was probably Blue Eyes, because they play Spellcasters and Dragons and everything like that, and it never came up. I never sided it in. But remind you, this is just a locals tournament anyway. 3 Evenly Matched. Again, never put it in. I don't know. I just I probably should have put it in against the Altergeist player, but I didn't. And speaking of Altergeist stuff and trap decks in general, I had 3 Red Reboot right there. This is good against trap-based decks like Altergeist. If I saw True Draco there, I would have decided it in against them. But I didn't see any True Draco, so didn't have the chance to use that. All in all, I feel very happy with this deck. Would I take it to regionals? I mean, yeah, I'd probably take it to a regionals, definitely. But I don't know. It's a decent deck. It's a decent deck. That's all I have to say. So, thank you guys so much for watching the deck profile. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the content. Give me a subscribe if you want to see more of this Yu-Gi-Oh content. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.